Today on Locked On Red Wings, Steve Yzerman talks before training camp, recapping the offseason and previewing the upcoming one, as well as the roster getting released for training camp.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and available wherever you get your podcasts. Scotty, Steve Yzerman took some time out of his day today on Wednesday about 10 a.m. to talk to the media ahead of training camp. I was asked questions about the offseason, and he answered them. We'll discuss some of the things he said because there were a couple interesting tidbits about players in particular and decisions made I thought are interesting, worth bringing up. And then as I was driving home from work, the training camp roster got released, so we'll break down that as well in segment 3. Of course, it's pretty much as expected, just a combination of the Prospect Games roster and the current Red Wings roster plus Grand Rapids folk. So we'll talk about that as well in segment 3. But before we get to any of that, got to let you guys know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, Scotty. Steve Yzerman spoke for about 30 minutes with the media, and he was asked all kinds of different questions. Where do you want to begin? What stood out to you the most in this press conference?
Well, I think what stood out the most is different from the biggest news to come out of it. I think that those are probably two very different things for a lot of people. I think I want to start with the biggest news to come out of it, which is Edvinsson's injury. Lower body is all he said, yeah?
Yeah, just lower body, and he was going to be out a couple weeks and should be ready around the time of the start of the season.
It was around the opener.
Right.
And so whatever that means. That could mean, right, he's back a week before the opener, game 1. That could mean he's back, 2 weeks after week 1. I think all of those are kind of similar to around the start of the season, but that is what the quote is. So.
But essentially that means that we will not see Simon Edvinsson at all during training camp or during the preseason because 2 weeks from Wednesday when he said that would be October 1st. And I'm looking at the training camp roster right now, and I don't think I see. No, he is on the training camp roster, he'll be around and he'll be participating as much as he can.
Yeah, he'll, especially if it's lower body, if it's something that prevents him from skating at 100%, then they're just going to take it super slow, which they should. I don't.
Correct.
If he's hurt, I do not want to see him in a preseason game. No, thank you.
Then that entire time, when they were talking about, everyone's healthy except this person, I was like, I held my breath. I was like, who's it going to be? And when he said Simon Edvinsson was hurt, I went, oh my God. And then I did the math in my head. So I'm like, a couple of weeks is he should be okay. We'll be okay. Okay. Cool. Right.
Yeah, but
I was freaking
like a mini crash out there. You certainly do while you're kind of waiting for
the name. You go through the 5 stages of grief.
Right. If they can get through training camp and the preseason with their only noteworthy and NHL roster injury being Edvinsson just missing preseason games and being back in time for the regular season, then it's a massive win of a preseason and training camp. So, now they just gotta stay healthy some more. But all things considered, I think we'll take that for now.
Yeah, and continuing on the injury front, too, we got a little bit more explanation as to why Carter Bear did not play in the Prospect Games after initially being rostered for them. He was healthy. He was cleared. The training staff just decided that it would be better for Carter Bear to get a longer runway into more intense training before throwing him into game action. They just were like, let's not throw him into contact right away. Let's give him the training camp, and then he can play preseason games instead. Just giving him, just like I said, a little bit longer runway to get his body back up to speed after having, a near catastrophic Achilles injury.
For sure. Yeah, no, I don't have too much else to add. That's just again, there is no reason for prospect game, red and white game, preseason games, training camp. There's no reason to risk an injury in any way, shape, or form. If you are not feeling literally 100%, then you're not going to play, and that's the right move.
Yeah, I thought it was the smart decision to make when coming off an injury kind of like that. We also got more insight as to why Travis Hamonic was signed. They asked him pretty much directly, what went into signing Travis Hamonic late in the offseason. And he said, Scotty, essentially, they explored the trade market for a right shot D. I inferred that as like Erik Karlsson, right? Because that was the rumor for a long time. The Wings were kicking the tires on that. There may have been other players they were kicking the tires on as well that were right shot D. Nothing materialized, and they wanted added depth on defense. So they went out and got Travis Hamonic because they lost Jeff Petrie. So they wanted that veteran defenseman who can play top 4 minutes if you need him to be. I will say this. I never once want to see Travis Hamonic playing second pair minutes. I know he can in a pinch, and that's great. You need players like that because obviously throughout his career he has been, but this is not New York Islanders Travis Hamonic any longer. This is 36-year-old Travis Hamonic. He has definitely lost a step. If he's playing on the third pair, I can swallow that. But if it's anything more than just like a couple games with injuries, and he brought that up, it's like you need defensive depth for when injuries happen. I don't care that they signed Travis Hamonic. I think it's fine because injuries do happen, and he is a better player to have on the roster than William Lagesson, who you would have called up instead. But I do not want to see him in a consistent role in the second pair. Not that he implied that. He just implied that he can play second pair minutes and has played second pair minutes. But that was the one moment I was like, I hope that's not the expectation of Travis Hamonic at 36.
Yeah, I didn't take it as that. Obviously, only time will tell. We'll see. But I didn't take his response as like, oh, he's going to be a prominent fixture in the top 4, right? Like,
neither did I, but that thought in the back of my head was like,
for
oh, God.
sure. No, I certainly get it. I think, I really reflect everything you said. I think that this is just a good decision in terms of depth, as long as, again, obviously the expectation is not for him to be some prominent fixture on the blue line every night, but.
Right. What else stood out to you?
Well, I guess we can just talk about
what people are upset about when they shouldn't be upset.
The big moment, I guess we'll say, of it.
I think before we even, for context, somebody asked Steve Yzerman, should he be should you be on the hot seat? Something along those lines. In talks with Chris Ilitch, and shout out to Grindline for having really comprehensive notes on social media about what happened. So I'm going to read from their tweet here. Grindline, they're great. They're another great Red Wings pod. There's so many of them out there, but they're definitely one of the best ones. Steve says he sees, in talks with Chris Ilitch, how much more urgency does Steve feel to make the playoffs to keep his job? Steve says he sees progress in the organization. And then, implied that that person who asked the question was just looking for the playoffs. That was the part that got a lot of people upset because Steve obviously is, I don't know. When I was listening to it in real time, I didn't make anything of the comment. I thought the press conference as a whole went fine. And then a couple hours later, I checked social media and people are really upset about the comment. But I took it as he was replying directly to that specific journalist, not to the fans as a whole, and I think that's what people are missing, because that's why I didn't get upset about it. I didn't think he was implying to the fan base that was the case, but I think he was just replying to that specific journalist just because, of the situation.
Yeah, I think, I completely agree with you. I think he was talking directly to another singular person and not, the entire fan base just being like, oh, all you guys just want me to make the playoffs, like whatever. That's not how I took it. To each their own, I guess. He said what he said, but that's not how I interpreted it either. And like that journalist has, I'm sure there are plenty of people in the Wings front office and the Lions front office that probably have said something similar to that person specifically. So I don't think that this is like I don't know.
Right.
I don't think. I think this is a nothing burger. I don't think this
It is
a story
absolutely.
whatsoever. I think honestly, like to be completely real, I don't. I think if anybody else in that room asked that question, that it wouldn't have been like a big deal either. It's just, sometimes people have reputations that precede themselves, and I think that in that moment, again, Steve was talking to one other person, and a lot of people kind of took that and ran. So I really did not think of it too much of it on either side. To be completely real with you,
and Steve maintained the same thing that he's maintained this entire time, is that they're building through a young core, right? They're building through the draft, and so that's what they're going to continue to do. They're going to keep that process. And if people are frustrated at the slow, and that's the thing too, is like we on this show have talked about how it's time to ramp it up. And it is time to ramp it up. And Steve even mentioned he understands that fans probably feel impatience at this point. And actually he said that it's not even impatience, it's more of an urgency because of the fact that it's been so long. He even mentioned that. But it's just I agree with you. I thought it was a whole nothing burger. I was shocked when it was making the rounds on social media because, like you said, I immediately clocked it as he's talking to this specific person. And like you said, reputations precede themselves. But let's end that conversation there. Scotty, let's head to segment 2. When we return, there's a couple more things I want to talk about. He was asked about Marco Kasper as well.
Yeah.
So stay tuned to segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You're going to love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, Steve was asked about Marco Kasper and his role on the team in the upcoming season. He did say, ultimately, it's a Todd McClellan decision because he leaves roster decisions like that up to Todd. But he said if he had a lineup decisions, yes, up to Todd. But if he had to take a guess, his hunch was that Marco Kasper would indeed play 2C between DeBrincat and Kane like he did last season and under McClellan. So I thought that was interesting because I know that was something that we have debated a lot on this show is will he go back to playing on the first line or will he take over 2C? I think with that, and it's not an answer, right? He said it ultimately falls on Todd to make that final decision, but having that almost, I'm going to stop short of saying endorsement, but having Steve Yzerman, that be his best guess as to what's going to happen, now okay, your best option at left wing 1, who's also your best option at 2C, is out of the picture. Again, you just think who fills that role on the top line? Is it Andrew Kopp? Is it Jonathan Berggren? Is it Elmer Soderblom? JVR? I mean, there's a whole host of players who probably are going to rotate time on that left wing, maybe even Marco Kasper in the end.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of kind of like musical chairs that's going to go on with the top. Well, really, I guess with just those two positions, everyone else is pretty set in stone, I guess. But I think that you will see Marco Kasper play top line wing at some point this season. Like to think that he is going to get 0 seconds in that role, I think is probably, I don't know, disingenuous, whatever word I'm trying to think of. But I do think that it primarily, I mean, we've been talking about it all summer. Marco Kasper is going to be penciled in as the 2C going into camp. Clearly, Yzerman agrees. I think that, now the big question is just who on earth is going to play top line wing? And I mean, you went through the names there. There's not really any. Notice that he had an endorsement for 2C, but not top line wing. There was no overwhelming endorsement for who will fill that role. And I think that that's pretty intentional.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed too that nobody asked him about the prospects games in particular because of the fact that Danielson and Amadeus Lombardi looked so good. Shai Buyum as well, put him in the mix of players that looked really good. But he was asked about youth who would have an opportunity in training camp, and people asked specifically about MBN and ASP, obviously. And of course, he said the standard almost said General Motors, general manager thing where he says, if a player makes it so you can't cut them, then you don't cut them type of role. So basically, if Danielson, for instance, proves that he is better than this person in that roster spot, he'll get the play.
No, but that does
position.
matter. Like I
Right.
understand the the GM speak of it all. I completely understand, but at the same time, like we have heard him and other front offices in the city over the years, quite frankly, come out and say, hey, this person's going to be in training camp or preseason, but they're obviously not going to make the roster. We've seen that with the Wings over the last couple of years with specific guys. So, like, I don't think that that's nothing. I do agree with you that it's largely nothing, but it's not completely nothing.
Not completely.
There is a little bit of an open door there, at least, even if it is not, just again, like a complete endorsement, if you will, for him to be on the roster.
Right, and they asked him about the salary cap and how with the rising salary cap, if that's making it easier or harder to get players in the door and finding impact players, and he just responded by saying that basically it helps some teams keep guys. He referenced Florida directly with obviously Ekblad, Marchand, and Bennett this offseason. Reinhart the year before, all those guys and they took some of those guys to take sweetheart deals too to help the team out. Reinhart definitely did the year before that. But he again reemphasized that's why it's important that they grow their own talent so that they don't have to go shopping for talent elsewhere. And I mean, this is the same thing we've been hearing for 4 years. It's nothing about anything that he said outside of the player news stuff. Nothing he said has been any different than the last 10 years, right? 7 years. It's only been 10 years is an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. He did also mention, Scotty, like he said the thing that a lot of Red Wings fans are going to be upset about. He referenced Ken Hollins when Ken Hollins was going out the door, referenced that Ken Hollins said it would take 10 years to do the rebuild. I will not sit here, and neither will Yzerman. Yzerman says that they're not tone deaf. He recognizes they're not tone deaf, that there is obviously expectations from the fan base, and he understands that, and that fans have been patient. But I won't sit here and say that 10 years is not a long time to wait for playoffs. I'm not going to sit here and defend every single little thing that Yzerman said. I'm ready for the playoffs, and I need a playoff sooner rather than later. But I also understand that seat is not hot, man. That seat is not hot. And so I just kind of sit. I hate to say it, but you almost sit here and like throw your hands up. You're like, this is the situation we are in. Love it or hate it. So he's made missteps. He's made some great decisions, but we are going to stay on this course until Chris Ilitch decides that he's had enough, or Steve Yzerman, proves it. And there have been life signs, right? We always talk about it. The amateur scouting has been phenomenal, but the pro scouting has been, less than stellar. Some of these contracts have actually aged better than we expected. With salary cap surging has really helped with that. But it turns out at the end of the day, it's a nuanced conversation when you're talking about the GM tenure of Steve Yzerman. It's not all bad or all good. There's good and bad. And, I don't have the answer as to what direction they should go next. I can see the argument for staying true on this path, but also, hell, I'm impatient too. I really want a player to become an impact player or to gain an impact player to make this team take that leap into the next step. So, I don't know.
Yeah, man. I think that Yzerman, I appreciate the fact that he was blunt about not being tone deaf to the expectations of the fan base. I at least appreciate that they're not like, oh, we don't hear anything and we don't care and like whatever. I do appreciate that he, like you mentioned earlier, he used the word urgency. I can at least respect that. I also think that there is still just so much that is to be desired in the surrounding NHL talent that they have brought in to put around their core, that it is something that really needs to change sooner rather than later. I understand we talked all summer about the, big name free agent, and they end up staying with their team, right? Free agency might not have been as hot as it was expected to be. I still think this summer was a complete failure. That they added John Gibson. Like, that's essentially it. I guess not literally, right? You have JVR, you have a couple other of these smaller signings, but in terms of,
it certainly failed our expectations.
Right. In terms of like legitimate, who's going to be a starter on this team, be a high end, prominent fixture in this lineup, it's John Gibson, and that's it. And I think that if you would have asked me in April if that would, suit my fancy, if that would quench my thirst, if you will, I probably would have said no, not even remotely close. And so
that's not enough is what we would say.
Right. And so I think, we're here now. It's not like hope is all lost. You still have a young core that can take steps forward. You still have guys that were rookies last year that you're hoping can take steps forward. You have a 39 goal scorer on your team. Like, you have the pieces to still make this thing right. But that doesn't, those can be separate parts of your brain. You can acknowledge that the season is not just completely written off, while also understanding I think this was an incredibly underwhelming at best offseason.
I think you nailed it. I think you 100% nailed it. You can acknowledge this team still has a bright future and it's heading in the right direction overall, but also acknowledge this offseason was a failure and that they need a shot in the arm. They need a boost on this lineup from somebody. And also acknowledge that was all tough to accomplish this offseason with the fact that everybody was able to keep everybody with the salary cap. Like, that's the thing is, the one thing, if I can ever get it across on this podcast, is that life has nuance. In every facet of your life, there is a nuance to every conversation. So even while we can agree that this was a terrible offseason, a failure of an offseason, it failed our expectations, we can also recognize it failed our expectations for different reasons than we expected. For reasons where it's like, nobody came available. People were off the market before the market opened. But it still failed our expectations. You still failed to get the player you needed. You just recognized that it was a different situation than you were expecting.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I mean, we talked about the trade market. None of those ended up happening. Like, there's other avenues to improve your team than just free agency. And they did not open any of those doors. They didn't do any of those things. And yeah, so I think you can – I don't think it's too hard to see both sides of the aisle there and kind of agree that both are true to an extent.
This is why I'm a professional fence sitter, Scotty, because I'm always like, I try to look at the nuance. But I understand that doesn't make for fun podcasting to listen to.
Well, it's just not also how, like, society is anymore,
right.
Just like in general. Everything is 100% or zero.
It's a rage bait society. Anyways, coming up on segment 3, we're going to talk about why Scotty stinks. I don't know. I'm trying to do rage bait. Scotty, segment 3.
I think a lot of people would tune in to that.
Actually, a lot of people would tune in, and it was the other way around, too, if it was me stinking. So, yeah. Anyways, let's go to break.
Yeah, let's.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you, and you can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKDOWNNHL at monarchmoney.com if your browser is half off your first year. In your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty, let's break down the nuances of the Red Wings training camp roster. You like what I did there? Brought it full circle. He didn't like it. All right, I'm sorry. I'll pop this up on the screen for you so those who are at home can see. Well, I guess you can't really read that. That's so tiny.
Yeah, there you go, guys. You can all just
there you go.
Super easy.
It's so small.
Ridiculous.
All right. It's on Red Wings social media. You can go find it anywhere. But I mean,
you
Scotty,
don't have to leave it up either. There's no point.
I'm committed now. It's the sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah.
Scotty, I mean, does anything on here like really stand out to you? Anything you want to bring up?
Not really. To be completely honest with you, I mean,
right.
We said it at the top of the show. Like this is pretty obviously was just going to be the Red Wings roster, a lot of the Griffins roster, and then the big names from the prospect tournament, and that is pretty much exactly what it is.
Yes. A couple of new names in there that weren't at the prospects tournament, guys who play like with Grand Rapids and of that nature. You have Alex Connick Leipart, Gabriel Seeger. Both those guys signed with Grand Rapids. We've seen Seeger before, obviously. I'm trying to just skim this really quick, but I mean, everyone else, for the most part, minus a couple of those camp invitees or Grand Rapids guys, we already saw either in the prospects game last weekend,
right,
or are on the roster and you're going to see. So like Sebastian Costa, we're going to see now, and we didn't see him at the prospects game because he's outgrown it. We're probably going to see Carter Mazur. There he is, right there. We're number 34. Interesting. Who's wearing 43? John Leonard is wearing 43. That is interesting.
Shout out.
Well, just because obviously he wore 43 for the minute-long shift before he got hurt. He loves Darren Helm, right? That's why he wears 43. He got hurt. Peter Mrazek came and took the number because Carter Mazur was out for the season. But I'm surprised he's not wearing it here. Carter Bear wearing 41. Luke Glendening. Shout out Luke Glendening, by the way. Got a PTO with the New Jersey Devils.
Luke Glendening circle, baby. Where face-offs go to die.
Yes,
my
sir.
dog.
There's really not a whole heck of a lot to break down here. It's all of the usual suspects, plus some camp invites who we already broke down last week on the prospect roster.
Liam Kilfoyle. Impressed. We talked about him. He's on here.
Mm-hmm. That's what, again, like that's why I'm bummed no one asked Yzerman about what he thought from the prospects games, because I thought that would be interesting to hear his thoughts after some of those players really showed out. But yeah, training camp starts today, Scotty. Ooh. By the time people are listening to this,
we're back.
It runs through Saturday, and then Sunday is the red and white game. So we will yet again come back from a weekend with a game recap.
Look at us, man.
And then first preseason game is Tuesday.
Sure is.
So we are officially what spot on the tier list are we now?
Dude, that's your job. I have no clue.
You just start talking so I can find this.
You have it on your notes?
No, I just go through my Twitter.
Okay.
Just find the tweet.
I'm like, do you have something on the notes section of your phone? He's like, what is that? No, I just tweet every thought that crosses my mind.
I don't take notes. Actually, I take during the season. I take a lot of notes.
He doesn't take notes. He just tweets.
Sometimes I need to think before I tweet. Yeesh.
I agree. I think you should think before you speak too.
That honest to God, that's so real.
Yeah.
Just sometimes my mouth moves faster than my brain, and that's how I put my foot in my mouth. That's how I stutter. I've scrolled.
See, mine's the opposite. Back. My brain moves faster than my mouth, and then it just like shuts down, and I don't do anything because I'm just thinking at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
So officially,
here
based
we
on
go.
my tweet, officially, the prospects games were "Are we back?" ? Training camp is "We're kind of back."
Okay.
Wet, red, and
So
white
today
game,
we're kind of back.
We're kind of back.
Okay.
Red and white game. So Sunday will be "We're almost back."
Okay. Great.
And then when the first preseason game starts, we're back.
Yep.
And then when the first regular season game we're so back.
Right. Got it.
So
okay.
we are officially at we're kind of back.
Right.
Sunday will be we're almost back.
Right. By Monday's episode, we'll be almost back.
It ramps up fast.
It really does. It really does.
I hope this was entertaining.
There's no chance it was, but that's cool.
People have already tuned out. This episode's already over for 99% of the people tuning in. Scotty, do you have any final thoughts before we send people into our Friday episode? We do ball. We'll be back tomorrow with, I'm assuming we'll have some training camp stuff to talk about. Beat reporters covering camp, talking about who's showing up, maybe some player interviews as well. Stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. Your team every day.
Every day.